At Evernorth Health Services, we believe costs shouldn't get in the way of life-changing care, and we're doing everything in our power to make it possible. Behavioral health solutions that also keep your projections at their best? It's possible. Pharmacy benefits that benefit your bottom line? It's possible. Complex specialty care that cares about your ROI? It's possible. Because we're already doing it. All while saving businesses billions. That's Wonder made possible. Learn more at evernorth.com/wonder.
This is Find Your Dream Job, the podcast that helps you get hired, have the career you want, and make a difference in life. I'm your host, Mac Pritchard. I'm also the founder of Mac's List. It's a job board in the Pacific Northwest that helps you find a fulfilling career. Every Wednesday, I talk to a different expert about the tools you need to get the work you want. Applying online has become a common part of the job search. And as the practice has grown in popularity, employers say they see candidates make the same errors again and again. Elora Arding is here to talk about 4 online application mistakes to avoid. She's the People and Culture Manager at Portland Audubon. Her organization protects birds and habitat, fights climate change, and advocates for access to nature. She joins us from Portland, Oregon. Well, we're talking today, Elora, about 4 online application mistakes you see candidates make regularly. But before we get to those, I want to talk about online applications in general. How common is it today, Elora, for candidates to use the online application function?
It's very common for candidates to use the online applications just because I think paper files are, tough to track and are easily misplaced nowadays. Everything's a little more eco-friendly, I'd say. So it's, just much more common for people to apply through applicant tracking systems or emails rather than paper applications nowadays.
So I have to ask, I know there's a listener out there who might be thinking, one way I could stand out is to send a print resume and cover letter. Does that make a difference, do you think, when you're reviewing applications as an employer?
I receive maybe just a very few nowadays via, the mail. And I don't know if it actually makes a difference because as long as you are following the application instructions and submitting everything that is asked for, typically if you're doing it online, it's received a little quicker than if you were to, mail it in to us. We do still accept applications via U.S. Postal Service, but I think, if you want to get your application in on time and you don't want to, you just want to be sure that we're going to receive it. It's just much easier and much more common to do that through the applicant tracking system.
And why do employers like applicant tracking systems and accepting applications online? What are the benefits to hiring managers?
Well, I think there are definitely a few. I think it streamlines the hiring process. It makes it easier to manage larger volumes of applications that are received. And, like I said, I've been in the game for a while, so I still receive paper applications, but we end up scanning them into our system anyway when we receive them. So it's just an extra step. And yeah, I think also when we use our applicant tracking systems and our HR information systems, we can include things like pre-screening or what I call like knockout questions. So applicants can answer some questions from the get-go and we can kind of filter people out from the beginning. So perhaps we have an applicant who is unwilling to relocate for a position or travel for a certain position. And, this position requires on-site presence or traveling. Knowing that up front will save time for both, us as the employer and for the job seeker.
What are the benefits of online applications for candidates, Elora? How does it help applicants?
Well, I think it, makes it easier to apply for multiple positions in a shorter period of time. But it also, on the flip side, I think that can sometimes be, I guess, a mistake, or I think we'll get into this a little later in the podcast, but we see a lot of one-click apply features nowadays in various applicant tracking systems online. And sometimes, we see, even though it's much easier for the job seeker to apply for multiple positions in a short period of time, that can also be seen as your resume being, put out there and less, I guess, impersonal, not effectively showcasing candidates' qualifications for a specific role.
Well, let's talk a little more about that because, as you know, there are candidates out there for whom it's a strategy. They think, okay, it's a numbers game. If I send out a large number of applications and the technology makes it easy for me to do that, eventually I'll get interviews and even an offer or two. For your perspective as a hiring manager, Elora, what are your thoughts about that strategy? And can you tell when you are getting applications from someone who's doing that?
Yeah, I mean, I've also been a job seeker, and so I really appreciate, the easy, one-click apply features that we now see in websites like Indeed and Glassdoor, the easy apply function in LinkedIn. It can be daunting to have to go to a website every time to fill out the same answers for the same questions. But what I see happen is, people are using that one-click apply, and sometimes they're applying, let's say, for different positions at the same organization, and they're using their same resume that is generated by these websites that use the one-click apply. And rather than, tailoring their resume to more so fit that specific role, they are just submitting the same, application or same resume, and even sometimes the same cover letter. They're not tailoring it to the specific role. So I think, taking the time to customize your application materials is crucial, especially, when you're applying for maybe multiple positions at the same company. I see people make the mistake of, addressing the wrong hiring manager, or, addressing the wrong role when they're applying for multiple positions within the same organization.
And one-click apply is actually number one on your list of four common online application mistakes to avoid. And it's not, and let me clarify, you encourage people to avoid the mistake of sending the same material to different employers. And you say the better approach is to customize your applications. Let's talk about that. Why shouldn't you use the same materials when applying to multiple employers? And what are the benefits of customizing your application to each position?
Well, I think what ends up happening with the one-click apply feature is, rather than looking through the entire job description or job announcement, they see a job title, and that relates to, maybe the current role that they're in, or the current job that they're seeking. And they're like, okay, well, yeah, I'm going to apply for this, rather than taking the time to, look a little further, who is the organization that is posting this position? they're not doing their research, I'd say. And a lot of the times, I can tell you from personal experience, we use a system that pushes out our job openings to websites like Indeed and Glassdoor, and people are using the one-click apply feature, but they're not reading through the entire job announcement. And most of the time, our application instructions are listed at the bottom of the job announcement. And so they're using the one-click apply, and they're only submitting their resume. But our application instructions actually ask for, answer these additional questions, include a cover letter, and professional references. So people are just, essentially skipping through that. And what happens is when we go to review candidates, if they haven't completed the entire application process, then, they're most likely going to be filtered out of the process.
Okay. Well, hold that thought. We're going to take a break, Elora, and stay with us. When we come back, Elora Arding will continue to share her advice on 4 online application mistakes to avoid.
This episode is brought to you by La Quinta by Wyndham. Your work can take you all over the place, like Texas. You've never been, but it's going to be great because you're staying at La Quinta by Wyndham. Their free Bright Side breakfast will give you energy for the day ahead. And after, you can unwind using their free high-speed Wi-Fi. Tonight, La Quinta. Tomorrow, you shine. Book your stay today at lq.com.
We're back in the Max List studio. I'm talking with Elora Arding. She's the People and Culture Manager at Portland Audubon. Her organization protects birds and habitat, fights climate change, and advocates for access to nature. Elora joins us from Portland, Oregon. Now, Elora, before the break, we were talking about 4 online application mistakes to avoid. And the first one that you called out was using the one-click apply instead of customizing your resume and other application materials for every job. And we talked about the importance of doing that and how it can help you as a candidate. Number 2 on your list of 4 common online application mistakes to avoid is not telling your career stories. Why is it important, Elora, to share your career story in your online application?
Yeah, I think it's extremely important just to highlight your experiences, your achievements, and even mention, some of the challenges that you've experienced all throughout your career journey, all the way up until, the point of you applying for the position and why you're applying for this specific position that, you're interested in now. When you're talking about your career story, you'll want to, use specific examples from, either your current or previous employer. Maybe, you left a previous employer, operating procedure in a better place than, where you found it.
So talk to us about the benefits to a candidate of telling your career story, Elora. How does that help you as a hiring manager when an applicant does that?
Yeah, I think it's important to do that because, you can highlight, your starting point to where you are now. It's always important to, show the obstacles and challenges that you've overcome. Career progression is really important to highlight. I, for example, started out in customer service industry, sales associate, and realized that I wanted to continue working with people, and maybe not in the customer service industry itself, but that is how I got my footing in human resources. And I continued to grow from there. I went from, assistant positions to associate level positions, and now I am in a manager position, and just really illustrating that progression is important for applicants to share with employers.
And why does that matter to an employer, understanding a candidate's career progression? What question is being answered when you as an applicant do that?
I think it shows your passion for the role that you're applying for, and maybe even for the company that you're applying for, when you're, able to show that career progression over time. And, also, able to, highlight your dedication to the role, and showing your prospective employer that, you want to be there and you want to continue to grow into that field, or even switching from one employer to another. Maybe you're wanting to switch gears and go from a for-profit industry to a nonprofit industry. And, maybe the nonprofit world is more so aligns with your own personal values.
Well, number 3 on your list of common online application mistakes to avoid is, and you touched on this in the first segment, are the candidates who don't follow application instructions. What kind of instructions are applicants ignoring when they're filling out their online applications?
Yeah, so most commonly I see, they're just not providing all of the materials that are asked of them in the application. So if they're, if the employer is asking for, resume, cover letter, and the job seeker is only providing, a resume, then, it is likely they're going to be disqualified from the process from that point on. And I think it's also important for job seekers to, do a little more research. If they're applying for a position, they might be, let's say, a very experienced teacher or educator. And that might show on their resume. Maybe they have years of experience teaching school-aged kids. But if they're not doing the research on the organization that is hiring, maybe this is a teaching job for, school-aged kids, and, with a focus on science rather than writing, for example, and they're applying for the job, not doing the additional research, then that's going to, I think, backfire when the employer starts to review applications.
And why is that, Elora? Why will it backfire if you don't do the research? Is it because your competitors are doing it? What's going on there?
Well, it kind of goes back to not tailoring your resume to fit the role itself. You want to really include keywords from the job announcement into your resume, and really show the commonalities between your experience and what the employer is looking for.
And I want to return to a point you made a moment ago about not including materials that can, in many cases, including materials that have been requested. You said that could disqualify you for the position. Mm-hmm. And while you're not familiar with every employer's practices, if you're not going to follow all the instructions, should you bother applying at all? Is it going to be a deal breaker if you don't do all those things?
Let me go back to the one-click apply feature again. We use a system that, like I said, people use the one-click apply to apply for roles that are open at our organization. And our system is, I guess, sophisticated enough to reach out to those people to remind them, after they've used the one-click apply feature, to also submit, their cover letter and their application questions and their additional, materials that were requested. And it'll do that over a course of time until the deadline of the application hits. So I don't think you should, I think you should just make sure to pay, close attention to those application instructions and, make sure that you're receiving a confirmation email that you did apply for a position, and revisit that. Usually will let you review your application, and then you can kind of go from there and see if you're missing anything. But our system does make it so we are able to filter out people that have not submitted all the materials that were requested.
The last of your 4 online application mistakes to avoid is ignoring questions or providing one-sentence response to questions in the application form. Why should you ignore questions or give one-sentence responses? Elora, how is that going to hurt you as a candidate?
Well, I think, especially if it is a part of the application process and it is one of the items that, is listed as required, it's important to answer them and to do it in a way that reflects, not only your experience, but also how your experience ties into the role that you're applying for. So, for example, we often have a question or two relating to diversity, equity, and inclusion because it gives us insight on the candidate's perspective and understanding in these important issues, and gives the applicants the opportunity to demonstrate their awareness of and ability to contribute to a diverse and inclusive work environment. And for us, it's, really important that we are very committed to our equity and creating inclusiveness in the workplace. And so, we want to also, hire folks that share that, same perspective.
Terrific. Well, it's been a great conversation, Elora. Now tell us what's next for you.
I would say not for me specifically, but, in early 2023, Portland Audubon, our board unanimously voted to drop the name Audubon and search for a name that better reflects our mission and values. And so after quite a long process of having conversations with our staff, volunteers, and our community, we have finally settled on a new name. And so we are going to be working on, unveiling that name and, all of, we have to, there's so many processes involved, rebranding and everything. So that is what I will be working on with our name change committee. And I'm really excited about it.
Well, congratulations. I know that even after your name change, that listeners can learn more about the work of your organization by visiting the Portland Audubon website at audubonportland.org, and that you also encourage listeners to connect with you on LinkedIn. And when they do reach out to you, I hope they'll mention they heard you on Find Your Dream Job. Now, Elora, given all the great advice you've shared today, what's the one thing you want a listener to remember about your 4 online application mistakes to avoid?
I'm just going to keep going back to one-click apply. If you're going to use one-click apply, make sure you're following up with your application process and, making sure that even after using the one-click apply feature, that you are going back and ensuring that all of the application materials requested are submitted.
Next week, our guest will be Andrea Jakob-Masik. She's the founder and CEO of AYM Consulting. Andrea's company helps professional women show up as themselves and move forward and upward in their careers. It's time to change your job, maybe even your career, but you can't decide where to go. Join us next Wednesday when Andrea Jakob-Masik and I talk about what to do when you don't know what's next. Until next time, thanks for letting us help you find your dream job. This show is produced by Max List. Susan Thornton-Hoff schedules our guests and writes our newsletter. Lisa Kislen-Barry Anderson manages our social media. Our sound engineer is Matt Fiorillo. Ryan Morrison at Podfly Productions edits the show. Dawn Mole creates our transcripts. And our music is by Freddie Trujillo. This is Mac Pritchard. See you next week.